Thank you for joining us today for the virtual Sunday service with the Center for Creative Living. I'm Reverend Dr. Ayleen Augustine, President of the Universal Church of the Master. Founded in 1908, UCM has held as its foundation that just as many rivers lead to the same ocean, each person's unique spiritual path is to be honored and nurtured. CCL, a charter of the Universal Church of the Master, has served and supported the spiritual needs of its community here in the Bay Area for over 20 years. Now, with a special welcome, the head pastor of the Center for Creative Living, Reverend Dottie Boon.
Welcome to the Center for Creative Living, and this is coming to you from my home. Yep, I'm staying in place, as not only the government say, my doctor says, everybody I know says, Dottie, stay home. So we're doing church from here, and you have reached the Center for Creative Living Sunday service with Reverend Doti Boon and lots of other folks. We're going to be hearing from our associate pastor, and that is Ann Corbin. She's going to be doing a prayer. Our wonderful Reverend Dr. Ayleen Augustine is getting everything together. Our Reverend Janet Child is going to be singing and doing meditation. So many things are happening, and then Reverend Corky Whitaker is behind the camera.
Hello.
Welcome. And so we're so glad to have you here. And as we go through today, we want you to give us a call. If you have any issues, if you have problems, if you'd like to get a copy of the Center for Creative Living's CCL Insight that we send out once a week, if you'd like to know a schedule of who's still going into the office or who's doing it virtually, call our office at area code 408-392-9090 and say, I would like to have, and let us know what we can do to help you. If you'd like to make appointments with any of our practitioners, call them directly. And if you'd like to get a reading by me, call the same office, 408-392-9090. Now, this has been a very difficult week. So many of you are staying at home, like I am, and you're finding yourself wondering what you could be doing next. What is it that you could do to help you during this difficult time? One of the things that you can do to help you is to start looking at comedies on the television, start downloading fun things that make you laugh, read books that are positive. We are going to be going into a time when people are learning how to live with themselves. Not just stimulation from all sorts of other things, but going back into daydreaming and writing and being a part of their own world. It's not going to last forever. If you find it difficult, it really isn't.
Now we will have our opening prayer with the Center for Creative Living's Associate Pastor, Reverend Ann Corbin.
Good morning. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing great. You know, I was just sitting here and listening to the rain, thinking to myself that the last 3 weeks that I've been working from home, the only time that I've had a break long enough to think about going to take a walk, it would start to rain. So is that the universe telling me to stay inside? Or am I being told that it's okay to go splash in a puddle a little bit? I'm thinking there might be some puddle jumping happening in the next few days if the rain keeps up. The last time I was actually out of the house was last Saturday when I went grocery shopping. And other than that, the only time I've stepped outside of my house has been to take my garbage out or to stand on my porch to take a nice breath of fresh air. But other than that, I've been in the house. And sometimes, although we are very blessed with this amazing technology where we can be together virtually, it does make me feel a little bit remiss because I miss hugs. I miss seeing all of you in person. So know that I have a lot of hugs inside of me, and I'm holding on to them for all of you. But in the meantime, here's a virtual hug from me to you, knowing that we will share one in person very soon. When I reach these moments that I need to lift my spirits more, I have a few tools that I use. Of course, music, singing, dancing, watching some of my favorite concert videos, reliving some old memories, knowing that new memories are coming forward. Watching some of my favorite movies or watching new movies. I love a good adventure. I love movies that make me sit on the edge of my seat. But I also love getting a little verklempt and a happy ending kind of movie, feel good kind of movies. But I love comedies and animation, and especially comedies. Dottie and Corky called me yesterday, and while we were on the phone, we just sat and giggled for a good 5 minutes. What a great way to lift your spirits. And the other thing that I do sometimes is I go to my bookcases. You can see that I have one right back here. And I might grab a book out of the shelf and just open it up to see if it has a message for me. And today I grabbed a book called Spirit Song, The Visionary Wisdom of No Eyes by Mary Summer Rain. And when I opened up that book, I saw there were some lines that were in the book, on paragraph, that were actually underlined and highlighted. One of them said, I learned to talk to my body. My mind alone could control the health or the illness in the physical body. Positive, good, optimistic, and loving thoughts were the main ingredient to health. It's important for us to remember that although we do have moments when we are not super high energy, that Creator never leaves our side. And it's interesting that I opened the book just to that page to hear exactly what I needed to hear, or read exactly what I needed to read at that moment. So with that being said, let's just take a nice deep breath in, breathing in love and light, and breathe out anything that is not working for you right here and right now. And you can take anything that is not working for you and you can place it into the virtual basket that's sitting right next to you. Creator knows what to do with it. You don't have to take it back. It's up to you. It's your choice if you choose to. Dear Creator, Mother, Father, God, universal love and light, wrap us in your loving arms and let us know and feel your presence with us, because we know you are here with us at every minute of every day. We know that you are the light of the world, and you have made us aware of the fact that we too are the light of the world. Thank you for all that you give to us, and thank you for the gift of technology so we can all be together virtually in these times. As we start this day and we start this service, we know that you will always be with us, cheering us on, holding us up, and keeping us going. Today is a day that we're going to look at humor, and we're going to look at what it's like to know that laughter is a healer. I know you have a sense of humor, Creator, and I know that you help us to know ours. So in this knowledge and in this love, we thank you for your presence in our life, and we open up to an amazing morning with some incredible music and wonderful friendship and a beautiful message. Blessed be. Amen. And so it is.
And now, a guided meditation and music with Reverend Dr. Janet Childs.
My friends, we are never alone. And many of us in this challenging times have been carrying the burden of the pain of the world, of the struggles in our own lives. this is a time for us to consider releasing some of those burdens. So just allow yourself to settle in to yourself and go to a sacred and safe cleansing place. Knowing that you can find peace and release there. And you are walking with your backpack. Every step, you're becoming more aware of all that you are carrying. And you come to a clearing, to the sacred center of this most wonderful place. And you lay your backpack down. You take it off your shoulders and just allow yourself to have a moment of freedom where you are not carrying anything. You are in your own body. You are feeling the lightness as you dance and as you move with the rhythms of the earth. And as you feel the freedom of that backpack being totally gone, just allow yourself to dance. We are never alone. Well, look how much we've grown. Fly well
And now, our featured speaker for today, Reverend Dottie Boon.
But the topic of my talk today is whatever happened to the fool. As many of you know, next week we're celebrating April Fool's Day. And April Fool's Day has been around for a very long time. It was said that the early Celts were the first people to have a day that was celebrating the vernal equinox, and where you could be foolish, where you could do things that you usually couldn't do, like dressing up and running through the streets. You could be putting on plays, you could be juggling of many, many different things. But this was a foolish time. And then the next time we hear more about the fool is through Chaucer. And in all the way back to 1392, talked about what it was like to be a fool, what it was like to change the world with one day of everything being different. Now the fool is one of these archetypes that we see in the tarot deck. It is one of these beings that is represented throughout history of the person who really tells the truth, only in a very unusual way. The jester was one of the few beings that could tell the king what was really happening in the kingdom and not lose their head because of it. Because the jester entertained and changed a way of looking at what was going on in the world. So think about that. Where's that jester within you? Where is that foolish person that can giggle and laugh and enjoy themselves even when we're going through a very difficult time? We have a thing called the spiritual fool, and that is the being that within you is able to talk to God and is able to be fun and have fun and be one of those people that everybody appreciates and enjoys. Because we know that our Creator didn't put us here on earth to be miserable. So many of the great books talk about the joy and the happiness of being alive. So start looking at, what am I going to do if I enjoy my life? Well, one of the things you're going to do is live longer. Think about that. People are always talking about, how can I live longer? Stop the worry, letting go of the tension, releasing all your fears is a very good way to do this. We have so many people that we've talked to that say, I can't stand what's going on now. Stand on your head. It makes everything look different. Do something that makes you laugh, but makes other people laugh also. Something that says, life is not that bad. I can do something that's very enjoyable. I bet you can do it. I know for me, there are so many different ways that I find to laugh and giggle and have a good time. This morning I made the mistake of trying to balance too many things. As I was going to the kitchen, I had 2 plates, a cup, and a plate of butter. Which one do you think fell on the floor?
I know.
It was the butter, of course. Now, nothing more difficult to realize so early in the morning this needs to be taken care of immediately as butter on a carpet. But that's what happened. That's the way I started my morning. And I'm sure many of you would have gone, oh darn, now that's another thing bad that happened. I thought it was hilarious because it made me realize that nothing is that bad. Why would I want to spend all my time worrying about wiping up butter off a carpet when all I had to do was laugh about it? So think about that, and think about the laughter. So when we do that, when we do think of the comedians that have given so much of their time and energy to make our life better, we think of people who reached a very, very long age. And I want to read some of these to you because I think it's so interesting that Bob Hope lived to be 100 years old. Carol Channing lived to be 97. Jerry Lewis, 91. And the people that now that are living, the comedians that we have, Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke, Jerry Stiller, Betty White, Carol Burnett, they're all in their late 80s or early 90s. And we had some wonderful people like Moms Mabley and Dick Gregory and all these great people who were here showing us the way, that lived very long lives. George Burns, having that ability to laugh, keeps us alive longer. So don't worry about, when am I going to get tuberculosis? When am I going to get cancer? When am I going to have a heart attack? When am I going to get this coronavirus? Don't get into worry. Don't get caught up in it. Start looking at the positive things in life and laughing about them. Because what you're going to find is, as you do laughter, things start changing. And one of the people that was really detrimental to his own health was a wonderful Norman Cousins, because he kept worrying about the fact that he had a disease the doctors had said was terminal, and he kept worrying about it. And finally one day he thought, I'm not going to worry about this anymore, but how can I change it? So he started to watch comedies on television. Now, he had gotten a hotel room right across from the hospital where he was being tested to see what was going on, because his immune system was dropping so rapidly. And the doctors noticed that his immune system started recording better after he watched the comedies. So Norman Cousins wrote a book called Anatomy of an Illness, Suffering from a Terminal Disease. And if you want to read a book that's so full of hope and help and excitement, read that book. Because he talks about how each day after he had watched comedies, he'd go in and they'd test him, and his immune system started getting better and better, to the point that he was cured and lived a very long life. That whole idea of laughter is the best medicine is also seen in so much writing. If you look beyond the doom and gloom books that are out there and find the ones that are positive. For me, I have so many books that I love to read, and one of them is by William Sears, and it's called God Loves Laughter. And it's his story of faith and religion. William Sears was raised a Christian and then became a Baha'i, and it's a very exciting and interesting story of his motivation and how he moved forward into a whole new religion and use it as a way to connect to people by laughter. And think about that. God loves laughter. Many people hit critical times in their life, and some have those critical times in their life happen quickly. And what I'm talking about is, my father was on a troop ship in the Second World War that got hit by a kamikaze bomber. Now imagine all of these men on this ship. When the ship was going down, the water was rushing in. All the men were jumping off the ship. They were finding these little rubber, virtually dinghies that they could climb into. It held about 8 people. And they're out there floating, and they realize they're being torpedoed by a submarine that they can't see. And my dad says what happened is they're all watching as a torpedo is coming towards them. Can you imagine a torpedo skipping across the waves, heading towards a rubber boat you're in? Your ship is burning just off to the left of you, and you know this is it. And at that moment, one of the army men stood up and said, "Hey, anybody want to buy a good used watch?" And my dad said everybody cracked up laughing And they watched as the torpedo went below them and skipped away. And he says he knew immediately that levity that was caused by the does anybody want to buy a used watch is what saved their lives. And there's so many times that we see that in history, or we read about cases that have happened where the whole outcome has been changed by laughter. So when you think about that, when was a time when you laughed when everybody else was either crying or sad? I know my mom and I, she had lost her husband, my stepdad, Dan, and he had died unexpectedly in his 40s of a heart attack. And we had gone to the undertaker, to the mortuary, to check out a casket. Now, my wonderful stepdad was Jewish, and they needed to have him buried within 24 hours after he died. So we're in the mortuary, and my mom says, don't you have something a little bit cheaper? Because this man was showing us these beautiful caskets, and they were lined with satin. They were amazing. And she said, can't you show us something cheaper? And he said, no, we don't have anything. She said, don't you have just a plain pine box? Because my stepdad hadn't been embalmed, so he wasn't going to be lasting a long time in the ground. And the undertaker looked at her and said, well, we have a casket that's gray flannel covered. Well, my mom and I started laughing, and we got hysterical because my stepdad had lived in New York and worked in the garment district as a businessman and had always worn a gray flannel suit. And so here is this man telling us the most awful thing that could happen would just be buried in a gray flannel covered casket. And we knew that was just perfect for our Dan. Well, we kept laughing. And the more we laughed, the angrier the man got. And finally, we were just holding each other up, laughing, tears rolling down our face, because we knew how much Dan would have appreciated that. And as we were walking away from the mortuary, my mom said, you know, there's a book written about the gray flannel suit. And in it, it says, that was a sign of responsibility. And we said, surely it was, that Dan was still being responsible, even in death. But that moment of hilarity was what lightened up the time so my mom could go on, because she was suffering so much at that time. There are so many other things that people do that are funny at the time, mainly because they hadn't planned them. We're coming upon Easter. Easter is going to be just around the corner. This year it's going to be different. I don't know how you're going to celebrate it. But I know one Easter Sunday, when the church Center for Creative Living was over at the James Lake Mansion, I was being very, very solemn. And a woman had said, we are going to pass the bread and we are going to pass the wine, where we're going to have communion. And so I'm not used to doing communion, but I thought, well, this is positive because this is something she wants to do for this time of year. And so I was looking up at the congregation and I said, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to have communion, and I am going to breast the blood. And everybody cracked up. And have you ever done this where you got caught up in what you were saying and you couldn't get out of it? So I breasted the blood a couple of times before. And by now everybody is roaring. So when I'm at church on Sunday and it's getting near Easter, somebody that was a part of that congregation 20 years ago will say, hey Dottie, are we going to breast the blood?
Yay!
And it's like, I could never get away from that.
Never.
But it is so, it just took me down a couple of notches of thinking I was really something. And how many times does that happen to you? Where you really feel like you're doing something positive, you're doing something that is so magnanimous, and then you just kind of fall, or you trip, or you drop the butter, or whatever it is. Those things happen quite a bit. And there are so many different things that happen in life that are comedic, and people don't honor them. They say, oh, that was stupid, or why are you doing that? I've seen adults watch little kids that are just running around having fun say, you've got to sit down, you've got to be quiet, as if having fun and enjoying yourself were a bad thing. Right now, there's so many things going on, and yet there's still laughter. How many of you look at the television? You're in the house, you can't go outside. What are you doing? Think of the comedians that lived so long. Think of the jokes that you've had in your lifetime. I'm sure there's things that you have done when you go, oh no, what has happened? I did something, I slipped and fell, or I dropped something, and you want to take it upon yourself to be sad, to be upset, to be mad at yourself. Open up. Remember the fool. Remember that energy of doing things just because they feel good, and to allow the truth to come through you. Because there are 5 things that need to be in sync for us to be happy. Have you heard that before? The 5 things are health, wealth, love, happiness, and full self-expression. And that full self-expression is being that fool, being that fun-loving person, being that person that can laugh at themselves, and they can laugh at the world, and they can laugh at things that are usually considered sad. Open up your heart to that joy and that love that's all around. Because being childlike is not a bad thing. Acting like a kid and having fun is not something that we need to regret. Enjoy who you are. One of the things that I like is getting together jokes that have happened to people in church, things that are really fun. And I have one here that I love, and it was the thing of people getting together when it's in a very, very serious time, and they are totally unaware that they can just have fun. And this is and I'm looking for it right here because it was a cute joke that I read, and I think I've got too many pieces of paper because this was something that I really enjoyed because this happens when you're planning a wedding. It seems like everything happens. And my one wedding story that I really loved was I married the couple. We were at the reception, and the bride's mother was just so, oh, everything has to be perfect, everything has to be wonderful. And so they brought out the cake, and they brought out the punch bowl, and it was put on a table, which all of a sudden, one of the legs let go on this table, and the cake started sliding, and it slid down the table like it was a ramp and hit the far wall. Followed behind it was the punch bowl. So here we have the punch bowl and the cake met. Holy union on the far wall, right? And the bride is crying, the mother is hysterical, and I just said to a couple of the young gentlemen there, would you please right the table and bring the cake. Well, the cake was in crumbs. And they set it on the table, and everybody's looking at me, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, God has cut the cake.
Yay!
And they were like, I said, now would you each take a plate and take some of the cake? Well, it was just crumbs. So they took crumbs and put it on their plate. And I said, and now look at a person and say, may you never hunger. And put some cake in their face, or on their tongue, or on their mouth, or whatever makes you feel good. Well, we had more cake flying around and more people laughing, and what had been this horrendous problem became this joyous celebration. And you know, that's one of the weddings that more people talk about than any others, because of the joy of what happened. We have those things that occur so often where everybody else is just horrified. And then you'll have some little lady sitting over in a corner just cracking up and laughing their head off. Be that little lady or that little man. Usually it's an older person who's seen everything. Be that person who can see the laughter, the joy, and the love in everything. Because you know what? You're going to live longer if you do. And you're going to have more fun. And I want to thank Reverend Corky Whitaker for laughing at my stories.
You are so welcome.
And for
You're
being
funny.
there behind the camera. and there is and I want to leave you with a story that I read a long time ago. And it was a futuristic story about a time when they were going to send a rocket to Mars. And in this huge, huge rocket ship were all the great, great people of the world. They were going to inhabit the planet. Now, this book was written way before we had rockets that could get us to Mars. Anyway, what this book talked about is that the great chemists, scientists, doctors, teachers, the most learned people on the planet were getting on this rocket ship, and we're going to be gone for 10 years. And they all gathered together and got on the ship. And there was one little guy, his name was Fred. He had kind of big shoes. He had red hair that was kind of frizzy and freckles. And it seemed like Fred got into trouble because these learned people, and these wonderful aerosmith engineers, all of these people that were doing these amazing things and calibrating everything, started arguing within the first week. And Fred always seemed to be, when an argument broke out, he did something stupid. He either tripped over his feet, he got his head caught in the doorway. There were all these weird things that just cracked up everybody, and they just got to the point of, that's Fred. All the time they were out in space and the time that they were on Mars, it became a common joke. Oh, well, that's Fred, or you just did a Fred, or, you know, that's what Fred does. Finally, after 10 years, the ship came back. And as the doors opened, all of these great scientists walked back onto Earth. And out in front, on the parking lot, were limousines and buses from places like MIT and Cornell and Princeton and Caltech. And all of these wonderful learned institutions had sent drivers to pick up the people who were going to talk about what it was like to live on another planet. And after all the limousines had pulled away, Fred came walking down the stairs. And he walked slowly down with that kind of goofy smile on his face and walked over to a little tiny orange van that said, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. And I always, when I read that, it always just touches my heart that what saved that whole expedition was a clown. So think of that. When people get to arguing, when people get upset, when people say, oh no, what are we going to do? Life is horrible, the stocks are failing, whatever it is that they're talking about, look at it from a different viewpoint. Find some joy, find some love, find some happiness, and it's okay to be the fool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.